Hey everyone, Agitation Rising here. I wanted to make a correction for my previous video on the managed competition clause of the police union contract and how it could be affected by the passage of the Community Emergency Services and Support Act, also known as CESSA, recently passed unanimously by both houses of the legislature. CESSA would create crisis teams to respond to nonviolent, non-criminal calls for service without the assistance of police. The TLDR version is that the Bloomington Police Union contract has a clause called a managed competition clause, which basically means you can't hire people to handle incidents traditionally handled by police if it could lead to less police being needed. For example, if someone is having a mental or behavioral health problem, right now it's typically an armed police officer who is responding. Many activists, especially defunders, support having crisis teams answer these calls instead of police. In the last video, I pointed out how interim Chief Greg Scott and City Manager Tim Gleason basically said anything but a co-responder model where police accompany crisis teams to incidents would violate the managed competition clause of the union contract.
The argument would be if they're going in the place of a police to a specifically something that's a police call. But we are not opposed at all to a co-responder model and looking at how best that could fit within our community. We are interested in looking into that further and seeing how it might actually work, and there's nothing in the contract that would prevent a co-responder model in my mind.
I'm gonna jump in here real quick. And another comment real quick. Chief, you were just talking about collective bargaining agreements, responding to Alderwoman Carrillo's question. What we find in general in a collective bargaining agreement is, in any given collective bargaining agreement, is if we're replacing union work, that's the challenge that we have. If we're not replacing or we're finding a way to assist, that's typically something that the union's not going to challenge with a grievance.
But we don't want a co-responder model. We want an alt-responder model where unarmed crisis teams are responding to nonviolent, non-criminal calls for service. Upon a little bit more research, it does look like CESSA would in fact preempt police union contracts with managed competition clauses, and it would do this in two ways. First, the alt-responders created by CESSA would not work directly for local municipalities. They are established by the Division of Mental Health Services of the Department of Human Services and are run by the state. The police union contract is between the union and the city, not the union and the state. Secondly, CESSA narrows the list of situations where police would traditionally respond. CESSA states, quote, 1. In any area where responders are available for dispatch, law enforcement shall not be dispatched to respond to an individual requiring mental or behavioral health care unless the individual is 1. Involved in a crime, or 2. Prevents a threat of physical injury. 2. Standing on its own or in combination with each other, the fact that an individual is experiencing a mental or behavioral health emergency or has mental health, behavioral health, or other diagnosis is not sufficient to justify an assessment that the individual is a threat of physical injury to self or others, or requires law enforcement response to a request for emergency response or medical transportation. Basically, CESSA is specifically removing nonviolent, non-criminal mental and behavioral health issues from the policing apparatus and placing them within the realm of the healthcare apparatus. The policing apparatus is itself a tool of the criminal justice system, and this is really critical that we do this, that we remove it from the police, because the number one resource for mental and behavioral healthcare issues right now are county jails. Our own insufferable Sheriff Sandage goes on and on about how proud he is that they expanded the jail so it could help more mentally ill people. Right now, we are using violence, whether by police or the violence of incarceration, to handle these incidents. CESSA provides help, not harm, in addressing healthcare concerns. Now, CESSA also preempts home rule, meaning that even if municipalities want to create their own alt-responder teams, they wouldn't be violating any managed competition clauses because by law, these incidents are no longer considered traditional law enforcement matters. So that's the only correction I wanted to make specifically about how CESSA would affect local municipalities, especially in their relations with police unions. I'm in the process of writing articles about CESSA and doing a video looking at the difference between co-responder and alt-responder models. So check out the website strangecornersofthought.com and the Agitation Rising YouTube channel, support our work on Patreon, and as always, love and liberation.